Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are demystifying X-bar and range charts, and we're going to show you exactly how to build them, how to read them, and most importantly, how to use them to catch process failures. If you've ever looked at a chaotic manufacturing process and wondered how in the world you separate the actual meaningful signals from the everyday noise, well, you're in exactly the right place. We're going to break down the math, walk through a real practical example, and learn how to truly listen to the voice of a process. Here is our roadmap for today. First, building the charts. Second, the detective work. And third, solving the meridian case. All right, part one, building the charts. So we're starting our explainer in the builder phase. This is where we lay down the procedural math and figure out our data collection plan before any active monitoring even begins. And right off the bat, it is absolutely crucial to understand that you need both of these charts to see the whole picture. Neither one is going to be enough on its own. The X-bar chart asks, hey, is the process still centered where it was? It's tracking the variation between your subgroups. But right alongside it, the range chart is asking, is the process still as consistent as it was? Tracking the spread within those individual subgroups. So one tracks your center, the other tracks your spread. You've got to have both. Now, to make these charts actually work, you must define what we call a rational subgroup. Honestly, this is the underlying genius of the whole method. You usually grab 4 to 6 consecutive units, meaning they're coming from the exact same press, the exact same setup, at the exact same time. Why? Because you want to force any major process changes to stick out like a sore thumb between your samples. You group them so that only normal, common cause variation is happening inside that subgroup. If you accidentally mix 2 different presses or 2 different shifts into a single subgroup, you're just going to hide the exact signal you're trying to catch. Let's ground this with our fictional Meridian MT500 case study. They're out there measuring tablet weight in milligrams. Their subgroup size, which we call N, is 5 consecutive tablets, and they're taking that sample every 30 minutes. Notice how they establish their phase 1 baseline using strictly the first 15 subgroups. That's because phase 1 is entirely about locking in your limits using a stable period of time that you can completely defend. Okay, let's get into the core calculations. And don't worry, the math here is actually pretty straightforward. For each of those 15 baseline subgroups, we calculate the mean, which is our X-bar, and the range, which is just the largest measurement minus the smallest. Simple enough, right? Once we have those 15 individual means and 15 ranges, we just average them all together. The average of the means gives us our grand mean, or X double bar, and the average of the ranges gives us our average range, or R bar. So the really crucial takeaway here is this resulting number, 500.071 milligrams. That is our grand mean, and it was derived strictly from our stable 15 subgroup baseline. It serves as the absolute center line for our X-bar chart. It's the true process center, exactly as the process itself is reporting it. Completely, 100% data-driven. Now, to set the control limits around that center line, we're going to need control chart constants. The awesome news here is you literally never have to memorize these. You just look them up in a table based on your subgroup size. For Meridian, our subgroup size N is exactly 5. So pulling from the table, our A2 constant is 0.577, D3 is 0, and D4 is 2.114. Just keep in mind, if your subgroup size ever changes, every single one of these constants is going to change right along with it. Setting the actual X-bar limits is just a matter of walking through these simple, action-oriented steps. We start right at our grand mean. Then, we figure out the half-width of our limits by taking that A2 constant we just looked up and multiplying it by our R bar, our average range. We add that chunk to the grand mean to get our upper control limit, and we subtract it to get the lower control limit. In plain English, we're basically translating our raw average range into the precise upper and lower boundaries for our X-bar chart. Now, before we move on, we have to draw a hard line in the sand. Never, ever put specification limits on a control chart. Let me say that again. Keep them off the chart. Control limits are the voice of the process. They're calculated purely from your baseline data, and they apply to subgroup averages. Specification limits, on the other hand, are the voice of the customer. They are set by product requirements or regulators, and they apply to individual units. A control chart tells you if a process is behaving in a stable way, not if the final product is acceptable to the buyer. You have to keep those two concepts entirely separate. Moving on to section 2, the detective work. All right, the math is done. Our charts are built, the limits are locked in. Now it's time to pivot to phase 2, monitoring fresh data and interpreting the signals. Imagine you're a quality detective out on the manufacturing floor. The process is humming along, and suddenly, a brand new subgroup is plotted, and a point falls completely outside the control limits on both the X-bar and the range charts. The order in which you react to this is absolutely critical for finding the true root cause. So which chart do you look at first? Treat this as an unbreakable law of statistics. You always read the range chart first. You absolutely must stabilize the within subgroup variation on the range chart before you can ever trust the center on the X-bar chart. This isn't just a helpful tip, it's the literal mathematical order of operations. The reason this golden rule exists comes down to cascading mathematical dependency. Think back to that formula we covered earlier. The X-bar limits are built by multiplying A2 by R-bar. If your rangers are suddenly out of control and bouncing everywhere, your R-bar, that average range, becomes completely meaningless. And if your R-bar is meaningless, well, your X-bar limits are entirely corrupted. The X-bar chart essentially borrows its credibility entirely from the range chart. If you read the X-bar chart first, you're going to jump to a confident but completely mathematically wrong conclusion. When you step into that detective role, you aren't just looking for a single point falling outside the lines. You're looking for specific clues that prove your process is no longer behaving the way your baseline predicted. A point beyond a limit? That's your primary screaming signal. But what about a long run of points stuck on one side of the center line? That means your center has fundamentally shifted. A steady trend up or down? That usually points to tool wear or maybe a chemical depletion. And a repeating cycle often points to shift changes, lot rotations, or even an ambient temperature pattern throughout the day. All right, let's bring it all together in Section 3, Solving the Meridian Case. Let's apply everything we just talked about to the rather chaotic end of the Meridian case study. We're looking at 30 total subgroups now, and things have clearly gone off the rails. Sticking to our golden rule, we look at the range chart first. Instantly, we can see that the within subgroup consistency has just totally collapsed. Look at subgroups 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. They all blasted right past the range upper control limit of 10.584 milligrams. This process is clearly no longer producing consistent units from one tablet to the next. Now, the chart itself didn't tell us why this happened, but it gave us something just as valuable. It told us exactly when. The range chart dated the onset of this massive spread failure right at subgroup 22. Armed with that exact timing, the investigation team honed in, and boom, they found the culprit. It was a worn compression punch on the C-shift tooling set. That worn punch was causing wild tablet-to-tablet weight variations. Okay, so only after acknowledging and finding the root cause of that spread failure do we finally turn our attention to the X-bar chart to evaluate our process center. And wow, the X-bar chart shows us that the process center actually started climbing way earlier. Subgroups 17, 18, and 19 had already exceeded the X-bar upper control limit. The average weight of the tablet stepped upward way before that punch ever wore out at subgroup 22. When the investigators went back and looked at the batch records around subgroups 16 and 17, they uncovered a completely separate failure. A brand new granulation lot with a higher granule density had been introduced to the line. The press was using the exact same fill volume, but because the material was denser, it was delivering more mass, which created heavier tablets. This perfectly illustrates a vital point. The control chart acts like an alarm clock pointing to the exact time the process shifted, but you still have to do the human detective work with your process records to find the actual assignable cause. Finally, as a quality detective, there is one huge trap you have to avoid, and that is tampering. Tampering is when you start adjusting the process in response to common cause variation, meaning you make an adjustment when a point falls entirely inside the normal control limits. If you tweak a machine just because a point was a tiny bit high but still totally within the limits, you're actually injecting your own adjustment error into the natural process error. Mathematically, that increases the overall variation. If a point is inside the limits, deciding to do absolutely nothing is an active, correct, and professional decision. So, here is a provocative thought to leave you with. When you're staring at your own manufacturing data tomorrow, remember that these charts are incredibly powerful tools. They empower you to know exactly when a real shift or spread failure has occurred, guiding your investigations with pinpoint timing. But honestly, more importantly, they give you the absolute mathematical confidence to know exactly when to step back, hands off, and just let the process run. Are you listening to the signals, or are you just tampering with the noise?